Hi, Mindy. Welcome.
Hi, so great to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining. So you just won Win-Loss Program of the Year. Huge congratulations to you. I would love to start out by just hearing how Klaviyo's Win-Loss program looked like before you built it into what it is today.
When I got here and first established our market slash competitive intelligence program, there really wasn't a win-loss program. There was kind of the traditional, like in minor pockets, people were looking at like Salesforce reports or teams were reporting up like, here's why we're winning and losing deals more holistically, or, like more generally kind of one-off in little pockets. Think of like a big deal review but nothing that was like a really formal program. So that was something that I saw the opportunity to establish and worked early on to just say, hey, we should build out a win-loss program.
And what are some of the key principles that you've built your program around to make it stand out?
Yeah, so I would say when I think about running a win-loss program, I think there's a couple things that I find really helpful. One is I think it's really helpful and you'll get better, more candid feedback when you use a third party to do those interviews. I think that's really important. I think brands are far more likely to tell you a lot more when you're not in the room. And so it just kind of lets them drop those guards. You'll learn so much more about who was in the deal, what the decisions were, and kind of why they did what they did. If you're especially if like the sales rep isn't in the room or somebody from your company isn't in the room. So I think that's one key principle that I keep in mind. And then I think the other thing that I think really drives our win-loss program is it's not just about what you learn, it's about what you do with it. And if you're not taking actions on those insights, then what was the point of doing the program in the first place, right? At that point, you're just wasting time and or money or both to, really get feedback that just kind of sits there and collects dust. Knowing that and really building your program around like this is what good looks like and having the confidence to say, here's what we should do and here's why we should do it, I think really sets you up for success, especially when the program doesn't already exist.
Totally. I was going to ask you about that. You just posted on LinkedIn. You made a post about how going beyond just insights and turning findings into results is what makes you stand out. Can you talk to me about maybe a specific example where win-loss insights led to specific outcomes?
Yeah, so when I think about doing our win-loss readouts, there's a great report that our CSM at Clozd puts together. Shout out to Jordan, who always does such an amazing job kind of summarizing those insights. What we've learned actually is that a lot of companies you can't get people to kind of go and do that work beforehand. So you spend most of the readout like just going through what those findings are. And as you get people more invested, they're more like, okay, but I actually want to make that the pre-read. And then you'll spend more time kind of thinking about what you should do. So a win-loss readout and report with your stakeholders should be focused on what are the actions that you should take. And so that's something that we take really near and dear to our heart. In a couple of our readouts that we've done, my team works really closely with the product marketer who's kind of owns that section of the platform. And we kind of go through, okay, what are the things that we've learned, right? What are our key takeaways? And then what should we do? Um, and we kind of break that into three buckets. What have we already done since the readout has happened? What are we already planning on doing? And then what's kind of the category of things that we haven't even talked about yet? If you have a potentially like contentious readout because different stakeholders disagree, or you feel like you're bringing something to the table that they don't know about, don't make anybody feel flat-footed. It just like never make anybody feel defensive. Do those pre kind of like smaller groups beforehand so that you fully know, and then you can really focus on like, okay, but what have we not talked about yet, and what do we need to do? And here are like our core recommendations. So when we did this with one of our newer product lines that we launched last year, the end result that we got to was because we had focused it so much on like these are the outcomes and these are the things that we should do that I actually got feedback from some of our design team that they had our screenshots of the report and like the closed UI in their Figma files as they were working on like iterations and planning and brainstorming. So I know we made a really meaningful impact because we took the time to really structure and think through all of the actions and really stress in those meetings like this is our goal. We're going to do something about what we learned or we didn't do this right.
I love that. I think that's a really cool example. And I like that the way you're getting those insights into the hands of the right people is through really tailored, thoughtful readouts that you're providing them with that information. You're also giving them a lot of context. Are
And
there
it's
any
really helpful to have like Jordan join those calls with us so that if there are questions about like the interview, it's not just me who's saying it. So when I come up with those recommendations, I always gut check them against Jordan. Like, is there any bias that I let in? Is there anything that I said that's maybe not grounded in what we heard during those interviews? And I think that really helps.
That makes a lot of sense. And it really connects back with something you said earlier, which is using a third party in a lot of cases is helpful because you're getting more neutral, unbiased feedback from the customers, but you are also getting that more neutral perspective because you're working with somebody that's able to serve up those insights without having a dog in the fight.
Yeah, and I think it's helpful because what we've done in some of those cases where like really bringing in that third party is helpful. So if you're doing a readout on a topic where let's say your stakeholders disagree, and because as this has happened to me at so many different companies, this is not unique. You might have product saying it's one thing, sales saying it's another thing, your billing, pricing team saying it's something else, your customer success team is saying it's something different and they kind of feel like nobody can agree on what the problem is. Find the spots where you should double click. So, for example, pricing is always a topic that comes up. What is it about pricing? Is it the actual rate? Is it the model? Is it the way that you're showing the results? Like, you'll know from those internal discussions where there's disagreement. And so when I work with Jordan, I'm like, hey, whenever these words come up, I need you to double click so that I know the exact answer. So I can come to the table during that readout and say, hey, when people say, for example, white glove service, they mean X or they mean Y, so that we can stop having so much internal debate and know that this is how the word gets used in the mind of our customers and how does it stack rank? Because again, they're just going to get that more transparent answer when they're speaking to somebody that isn't us because they're not worried about hurting our feelings. And I like the spicier readouts where people are really harsh or really direct because it's just more actionable and more straightforward, but it can, perk up sensitivities internally. And that's okay. You just have to know that that's what you're getting into.
Totally. Yeah. Sometimes it hurts to hear the truth, but the truth is what we need to make changes and to solve our problems. And I think that's something that we hear across our clients and here at Closed as well. Like people who are in different roles, like for example, a head of sales versus a head of product, they might care about different things, but when it comes to something like pricing or packaging, it can be really hard to arm wrestle and make those decisions without there being some sort of feedback mechanism where we're hearing from clients, or we can say, like, hey, we're consistently losing deals because of how our pricing is structured. This is how much revenue we've lost. If we go back to the drawing board and potentially make these changes, then we can drive real impact. I think like that's where your, sort of neutral win-loss insights can help to solve some of those internal battles.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's more than just analyzing what sales reps are writing down like win-loss notes. Not that those aren't helpful, that usually gives you like a pretty good idea, but customers don't always tell sales reps the full picture. And so really being able to get that feedback, it also validates everything that, your sales team feels like they're hearing or running into. And then there's always that element of like there's probably like a 10 to 20% chance that there's a surprise and you have no idea what it is. And that's like the most valuable nugget that you absolutely have to get. And it's hard to get otherwise.
Yes. And how are you defining success for a win-loss program? Are there specific metrics you're looking at or signals that you're measuring to know whether the program is working?
So I measure success on whether or not we take action. So when I go to those readouts with our stakeholders and I come with 3 to 5, things that we should do, I'm never going to expect to get all 5. I mean, that would be amazing, but it's just not realistic. But if we're not doing at least 1 to 2 things, then there was really no point in doing it. And I honestly, I start our readouts that way, and I'm very transparent and very direct in terms of like this is the goal. This is why we do this. We all agree that this is important. It sometimes helps to frame it as a healthy dose of vitamin C, vitamin customer, as an old manager of mine used to describe it. Um, and I think really all of that framing and how do you position the work that you're doing internally makes a really big difference. I understand it's so hard to like measure success beyond like, did you cover the different areas of your product? Did you focus on the right things? But if you're really going to define success, to me, it's all about action. Insights that sit in a corner, did you, what was the point of having them?
Absolutely. And I'm curious to hear, you're a seasoned CI professional, and as we have seen an evolution of AI, I'm curious about how AI has either helped you to enable your program or make it more effective, or if there's some potential pitfalls. I could also see AI being really unhelpful as it potentially serves up incorrect information. So I'd love to hear like anything you've learned around like recent developments in AI.
Yeah, so I think with AI, it has a lot of potential to really amplify a program as a collective whole, but it also poses a lot of risk. There's nothing that I personally find more frustrating as a practitioner and somebody who's been in this field for almost a decade than like a 30-second battle card. Do not sell me on a 30-second battle card. Do not sell me on a battle card that can automatically update without a human reviewing it. Not gonna fly because you need somebody to apply the business context and really make sure that the sources make sense. So there's a lot of really great insight that you can get from analyzing different data, but you have to think about what is that data and does that data make sense? Like take Gong, for example. I'm a huge Gong fan, love it. Would not use Gong to build a battle card. Um, I would also, I think if I were to use Gong to like understand like objection handling, great. Tell me what the objections are. I trust you, Gong. Like you know what's coming up in calls and you know what's happening. I would not necessarily take what Gong says the correct answer is and assume that it's correct. That's where like product marketing and like competitive and market intelligence professionals really need to make sure that they're shaping that it's the correct answer. And when you're looking at AI tools and you're trying to understand like why brands are making decisions, what's your source, right? Are you pulling from the collective whole of the internet? Because junk data in, junk answers out. And I think that's the real risk of a lot of AI. I am looking at using more AI to like do deal analysis and make sure that I'm thinking about the correct sources, but I don't think it's ever going to replace having those real one-to-one conversations with customers. Because if these are your most important customers, and I focus our win-loss program on like our bigger deals that are, strategically more valuable, there's just a level of like goodwill that you get out of them as well. And there's just something to be said about what customers are telling you directly. It's not that I assume that customers are always correct. In a win-loss interview, I've had customers say things that are blatantly wrong about a competitor or us, and they get like functionality mixed up. And that's where you have somebody who really knows what they're doing, being able to spot like, okay. And sometimes this is really silly, but I remember my mentor when he first introduced me to win-loss, and I did like my first win-loss interview, and we did it in-house. And he was like, Mindy, here's what's going to happen. We're going to do these calls, and the customer's going to say something wrong. And I know you. You're going to want to correct them. Hold that urge back. Let them explain everything that they think they saw, and we're going to do something different. The problem isn't that we didn't have a feature, it's that they got a wrong answer. And that's actually sometimes a much easier problem to solve because you just ask where they learned that from, and then you can go fix it. You don't have to get on somebody's wait list to go do something or build a new feature. And so I think as you think about all of that, I think AI is incredible. We're very AI centric here at Klaviyo. We all have actually AI goals in terms of like how do we measure and like drive the impact. But I think it's about using it in the ways that makes the most sense and having a strong human in the loop and somebody to really know and apply that business context. And I think that holds true across just general research, battle card building, win loss, and everything that you can think of. It just really, you're going to have a better result at the end of the day because you really scrutinize and you made sure you use the right source that makes sense.
It makes sense to me that you would be using AI to power up your processes or to make you more efficient, but AI at this stage is not a replacement for human touch. Like, we don't think so either. It just as humans can also make errors, like you said, in a win-loss interview. I find it helpful when I see there's confusion from the buyer because my first question is like, why are they confused? What caused that confusion? Then you can kind of dig into that on the human side, but AI makes mistakes as well and is definitely not able to replace the human element that you and other CI professionals bring. And I'm curious, probably the most frequent question that we hear is anyone that's looking to either build or level up their win-loss program, like what are top one or two things that they should do? What advice would you give to them?
So I would say there's two things I would really focus on. The first is defining what success looks like. I think for most CI and product marketers, you probably want to define success on action being taken and being really intentional about that upfront and getting consensus. And so when you do that as like your core foundation, like here's the way we're going to measure success, you get buy-in from mostly product that like, yes, you care what customers say. Yes, you want to have these interviews that have all of the details that kind of then force stack rank and take what is inherently, you know, qualitative data and make it quantitative because you've forced them to say like, okay, but what was the number one most important thing? I think that really helps in a way that you just don't get otherwise. And then I think the second thing, once we've got that strong foundation and that buy-in, is how do you ask people to help you? And what I tell my team, and this is true in just about every way that we go about doing things, it's about positioning and it's about understanding when you're asking a stakeholder for something and you have a large group of people that you want to do something, you're going to ask each group separately, individually, and you're going to tailor it to what they get out of it. And I know that that can sometimes come across as like, why are you taking the time to explain to sales, hey, I'm going to need you to go ahead and I'm going to need you to review these deals. Here's what we're doing and here's what you get out of it. You don't have to exactly say it this way, but like you're like, hey, here's our win-loss program. The goal of this is to understand why we're winning and losing, right? I know that you run into XYZ on deals all the time, and you've said so internally, and it doesn't feel like we're taking action, right? Here's what our program does. Here's how we're going to take that qualitative data and we're going to make it quantitative, and we have buy-in from product that it's going to influence our roadmap. So by you taking the time to help us make sure that we have the right content, we're going to find out those answers and we're going to help you get that prioritized. And you sometimes have to, I think, especially with sales, help them understand like what the goal is. The goal of a win-loss program is never a witch hunt. And I think the instinct from sales is that a win-loss program is always a witch hunt. So by making sure that you take the time to position and help them understand what you're doing, like, yes, if we get negative feedback on a sales process, we're going to share that. It will be flagged. But the chances of that are honestly at every company I've ever worked at so low. It's almost always something about like maybe the way that the messaging came together. And it's less about like one sales rep was a real jerk and more about feature functionality, pricing, factors that are just outside of their control. And we as a company need to understand. And I think when you take the time to help people understand that, you're going to get a lot more success and get a lot more buy-in. And I think that's true across a lot more than just running a win-loss program.
I think that's fantastic advice. Starting with the end in mind to get that internal alignment, making sure that you're setting goals and you know what you're setting out to achieve with your program, and then really tailoring the program to your stakeholders so that you're delivering insights that they care about the most. They're not getting, really generic insights that aren't relevant to their role. It's not a surprise to me that you won Win-Loss Program of the Year. So congratulations to you and thanks again for joining me.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.